On this episode of the Musicpreneur Podcast, I sat down with Realxty, an independent artist and creative entrepreneur based out of Chicago. He owns and operates Diamond Studios, a recording studio that he's built from the ground up. He talks a little bit about his journey from being a 9-to-5 worker to owning his own studio and going full in on his creative entrepreneurial journey. He also talked about the struggles of balancing that and his independent artistry, but at the same time highlighting how his Mexican-American heritage has influenced him to work hard and still be able to put forth the best foot forward. So I hope you enjoy this episode and get as much out of it as possible. I know you will. And again, this episode is brought to you by the good folks over at distrokid. More on them later. Realxty, welcome to the Musicpreneur Podcast, brother. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great and very happy to be here, man. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, brother. So first things first, man, where are you based out of and how long have you been doing this music thing for?
I am based out of Chicago, and I think I am going into my 13th year of making music. But if I were to consider like professionally making music as a Realxty, maybe closer to like 6-7 years ish. So regardless, been doing this for a while.
That's what's up, brother. And how old are you right now?
I'm 24.
24, dude. You started young, man.
I did.
I'm 31. You know, I'm getting to that age bracket where it's like I don't know if I saw this meme the other day where it basically said like, you know, the artist lifespan is, you know, you're kind of like an aspiring artist, then you're a disappointment, then you're an old weird guy with a home studio, right? I'm kind of getting to that old weird guy with the studio, but it's all good, man. You're still in the youthful stage of the artistry, so that's awesome, man. What was it like growing up in Chicago, first of all, and did you move from another city?
Yeah, so I live in a suburb that is literally 10 minutes in any direction to the actual city of Chicago, so it's like right on the border. I've always been here, born and raised here, and yeah, man, I think Chicago in a weird way has prepared me to be able to deal with change a lot, just because we have such drastic seasons, you know, like it's starting to get cold here. It's cold today, and then some days in the summer it gets really freaking hot. So just kind of dealing with the seasonal changes has allowed me to deal more easily with change just overall in my life. So it's been cool, man. Chicago is a big city with a lot of opportunities there for anybody who's willing to go and grab them by the throat.
Yeah, I love Chicago, man. I've been there a few times, and I can't say I know the city as well as you do, obviously, because you know you're born and raised there, right? But you also hear stuff in the news, right? Between the violence, the shootings, and all that stuff. Did you experience that growing up as well, or were you kind of like pulled back and reserved from that part of, you know, Chicago life?
Well, that's never been a part of like who I am or like what I do, but I mean, obviously, like there are some rough parts of Chicago, but no, man, I mean, for the most part, like it's been pretty chill. I know that like the news sometimes has their own agenda and tries to like push certain stuff, but I mean, Chicago is like a beautiful city, man, and there's like a lot of really great people around here. But nah, man, just some like maybe secondhand experiences, but personally myself, I'm blessed enough to say that I've been having a pretty good life.
So as mentioned at the beginning, this episode is brought to you by distrokid. Now, this is a brand new distrokid feature called DistroPick. If you go to distropick.com, you can generate your own AI-generated album artwork. You can type in a phrase, a couple words of whatever it is that you're trying to get the AI to generate. For example, man walking on the moon with a microphone in his hand, and you can see what the AI generates. Maybe it'll inspire you to write a new song based off of the AI generated artwork, or perhaps you already have a song and maybe don't have the talents or the skills to do your own graphic design. Why not let AI do it for you? Go ahead and check out DistroPick, brought to you by DistroKid. If you're not already a DistroKid member, sign up via distrokid.com/VIP/Nico Santana for 7% off your first year's annual membership plan. Thanks again to DistroKid for sponsoring this episode, and back to the podcast. I was actually born in Colombia, and you know, I moved to the States when I was 7, and in Colombia specifically, the city where I was brought up in, Bogota, you know, we definitely had run-ins with, you know, just violence, and it was very much a part of the environment. But there were also beautiful parts of the city, the culture and all that stuff. So I'm glad you're highlighting the positivity outside of that. And I mean, you know, kind of a lucky for you in the sense of like you were removed from that and didn't have to experience that. But at the same time, like you mentioned, there's seasons and you have to be adaptable. So I love how you're bringing that into your entrepreneurial spirit right now. Tell me a little bit about your heritage.
Yeah, dude. So I am a first generation Mexican American. So my entire family before me was born and raised in Mexico, and they came later in their lives. And that's taught me so much, man. That's taught me that like you got to work for it. You know, the only advantage that I ever really had in life was that I didn't have to go through what my parents went through. You know, and they sacrificed everything that they could so that I could have the opportunity to chase my dream, you know. But other than that, like, I still had to build this from the ground up. I still had to work for it. You know, nobody in my family has ever made a career out of art or has chased their dream. They kind of come and work whatever they can to help us get forward. So that's always been a driving force, is my heritage, and I make sure that I stay very close to that. I don't know if you can see in the back here, but that's a painting of me and my dad in traditional Mexican attire, because I used to be in a Mexican band with my dad, you know, when I was a teenager. So music and my heritage have always played a very, very intimate part in everything that I do.
That's beautiful, man. That was really what I wanted to capture from you, is how, you know, how music, or rather your heritage, has influenced your music and your business, and you spoke into it so well. So you were in this band with your dad. Did you grow up playing instruments? What was your upbringing like?
Yeah, so my dad was actually in a band when he was like my age. He played traditional Mexican music, which is norteño. It's like a region from the part of Mexico that we're from. That's like the music that's very prevalent. So he taught me how to play guitar when I was in 4th grade. He bought me my first guitar, took me to guitar lessons. And then as I got a little bit older, he taught me how to play the bajo sexto, which is like the Mexican version of a guitar that has like 12 strings. And then a lot of my other friends were really into the music as well. So we all just formed a band in 8th grade, and we did it for years. And some of them are still doing it. Some of them are like signed to a local record label and are still doing like the Mexican music thing. And yeah, man, I mean, music has just always been a part of my life since I was a youngin', always.
So from norteño to hip hop and the music that you're making now, what made you transition, and what made you fall in love with, or what made you go down the path of hip hop instead of any other genre?
Yeah, so actually hip hop was the first genre that I felt like I related to on an intimate level. Like when I discovered Eminem, I was like, what is this? You know, and that made me fall in love with hip hop, and I just resonated with that so heavily. So hip hop was the first genre that I found and attached myself to, rather than like the music that my parents listened to, or you know, the music that was around in my household. So I always had that love for hip hop from the day that I discovered it. And it was later in my life that I kind of started to fall in love with the music of my culture. And yeah, man, I mean, there was times when I was in a band that the first half of the day I was in the studio recording my mixtape, Broke College Kid, that I dropped when I was in college. And then at night I would leave, I would go to my house, you know, put on my boots and my hat and everything, and go play all night in clubs, you know, for Mexican music. So it's always been like very intertwined. And then one day I was just like, nah, I gotta focus my attention on one thing, because being a touring musician at 19 is hard and it's very draining, and I couldn't do it anymore. So I just decided to focus on my solo music career.
Transitioning a little bit more into kind of the business side of your life, really, what would you say was kind of the first step in going from either college kid to independent artist, or were you working a couple jobs before you landed kind of just the full-time independent / like creative entrepreneur role?
Yeah, so I think the first step that I took was when I was 12 years old, and when I initially started making music, because I didn't have any music connects. I didn't know anybody who did music, so I was kind of forced to like learn how to record myself and learn how to like make my own music. So I was 12 years old recording on a PS3 webcam microphone, and you know, that's how I would make my songs. A little USB webcam. It's not even a microphone, it's a webcam, but it has a microphone on it. So I was recording myself with that, and that always kind of made the independent aspect of me more stronger because like I had to do it. If I wanted to do this, I had to learn how to do it myself. So, as the years went by and I continued to do this, I would pay for studio time and I would pay for beats, but I always knew that I wanted to be in control of the means, of production and not have to wait on anybody. So, I started learning a little bit more, picking up tips and tricks when I would go to the studio. And then as time went on, I learned how to engineer myself a little bit better. And then I learned how to make beats. And I was going to college for video editing because I've been making videos longer than I've even been making music. But then I realized my heart was really in music and not in video. So I switched my major to audio engineering. And then I got a job at a studio. And I just dropped out of college. I just stopped going because I was like, I'm learning how to be an audio engineer, but I just got a job as an audio engineer, so I would much rather be in the studio than in class reading about being what I'm doing, so I just dropped out and I started doing that. And one thing led to another, man. It wasn't easy, but over time I built up my clientele. I got really good at what I did. I started learning how to run a business because, when I dropped out, I thought that I knew how to run a business. I didn't. Because I had just started getting the things moving. But running a business and maintaining a business and actually doing what you do is very different. You could be an engineer and a good producer, but not know how to run a business. So it took time for me to be able to manage my business and run it and build it to the point that I was able to do it full time. And, last year, my business got to a point where I felt comfortable in taking that next step. So I quit my job. I emptied my desk. I deleted everything on the desktop. I told my boss, see you. And I never looked back, and here I am. I just took the leap and swam. Nice, man. Yeah, that's the best way to do it, focusing your efforts on one thing at a time. And that's something that I personally struggle with. I work in corporate America. I have, kind of a decent job there that gives me the flexibility to be able to do these things. But at the same time, I know that my heart and my passion is in, kind of being an independent creator. So the fact that you took that step, especially at such a young age, is a testament to the level of maturity, the courage, the fearlessness that you have, but also knowing that you didn't know or at least have the wherewithal in the beginning to start that business and then eventually kind of leaping into that when you had the foundation for it. So it sounds like music is not your sole source of income. Can you kind of break down your business model? Like, what's that look like, and maybe kind of the foundation of your business so that people who are looking into getting into being kind of an independent creator like yourself are able to learn from you in that sense? Yeah, so the main part of my business is, I'm in my recording studio right now, which is my garage that I completely renovated, tore down the walls, insulated it, painted everything, built a vocal booth right here. I definitely invested in what I saw was going to be like my long-term plan. So that's, first of all, that's a very important step, is that you have to be willing to invest and understand that for a long period of time, you may not see any results. And I was watching the episode, the one that I told you, and they were that this is not like guaranteed. Some people give up before they really even get started. So a lot of this was just continuing to move forward and keep trying. And like you said, like the fearlessness, just knowing and trusting the process and knowing that this was gonna eventually work out if I just kept on trying. But I mean, yeah, it's just keep it moving. You just gotta keep it moving. So you mentioned that the first kind of like your bread and butter is your clients. Would you say that like what were some of like the more technical things of setting up your business that like maybe you didn't know beforehand that you wish you knew, or that you're figuring out along the way? Like, what are some of those kind of like obstacles or challenges that people could learn from you? Yeah, dude. So like the number one, thing that I always say is that this is going to take time. And I know I already said that, but to talk a little bit more about it is that like I quit, I dropped out of school in 2019 to start doing this full time. And around that, I started engineering at the studio at 2019. So I quit, like dropped out right when I had started. And I thought that just because I had found a couple clients that I knew how to run this business, and I didn't, because that dried up very soon. I dropped out in around April. And by June, I had a 9-to-5 because it was like I didn't know how to run that business. So it takes a while to build up clients. Not only that, know how to work with clients, how to maintain clients, how should you charge your services, what is your time worth, and things like that. And yeah, like I built a website, and now my website is to the point where I feel like it's pretty easy to maneuver. I make it very easy for people to be able to reach out to me, to contact me, to look at references of work that I've done for other people. I try to make it as easy as possible for people because I understand attention span is not, very great. And if people don't immediately see it, they're going to go away. They're going to go to somebody else who's made it easier for them. So it's really about like making sure that you know how to maintain what you got and like continue to oil the machine. And that's really the main thing, dude, is maintaining it long term. Because, yeah, you could have a big influx of clients and work come in. You could have a busy week or a busy month. But how do you turn the one-time clients into people that are going to continuously come back to you over and over again? How can you provide that value for them that that they cannot get anywhere else? Because that's something that I pride myself in, and that's something that I know that I'm able to offer is a service and more so an experience that I know that people cannot easily find somewhere else. And that's why people have been coming to me over and over for years and years and years, and I've built a long-term client base.
Do you think that's the most rewarding part of your entrepreneurial journey, is having those long-term clients? Is it being independent to kind of run your business as you will? What's the most rewarding thing for you? Honestly,
the most rewarding thing for me is to be able to live on my own time and on my own terms. Because back in May of 2021, when my business was starting to explode, like because of TikTok and because of the consistency that I was doing on that, my business was starting to explode to the point I couldn't juggle the two things anymore. I couldn't juggle my 9 to 5 and my business. I would be at my 9 to 5 in an office replying to work emails for my business, while I was on company time. And I hated it so much. I hated having to clock into a job that I absolutely hated. I hated having to sit in traffic for an hour to get home. I hated having to rush, throw something down my throat to eat, and then work 5 hours on my business and then go to sleep at 1 a.m. just to repeat the thing all over. Like, I hated that. So to me, the most rewarding thing is to be able to say, you know what, like, I've worked enough this week. I'm going to take a day off today because I'm tired. I'm going to spend time with my family today. I'm going to go do this that I like. I'm going to, watch a movie today that I haven't relaxed in a while. Today, I'm going to work all day because I feel like I want, you know what I mean? So it's like, right. That's the most rewarding, is to be able to be my own boss. And it's not easy. It comes at a cost. And like, right. What I tell people is that if you want to live a life like that, you have to give up a sense of stability and a sense of knowing, okay, at the end of this week or at the end of 2 weeks, I'm going to get, $1,200, $2,000 for my job, whatever it is, the 9 to 5. You give up that stability of knowing, because sometimes, even though my business has been built up, there are dry seasons. There are times where, maybe I don't have work for a week or two or something like that, or very scattered work. And you have to learn to deal with that. You have to be okay with, living in somewhat of instability and not knowing exactly when your next paycheck is going to come. You give that up. You give up the 9 to 5 to have that, but you get to live on your own terms and on your own time. And that, to me, is a very fair trade-off.
I appreciate your perspective because of that, because it sounds like you got, you have your experience in both sides of the world, and not having that stability, I think, just makes you a little bit more resilient and a little bit more mature with your money handling.
Definitely.
So switching topics here, just real quick, I wanted to learn more about Realxty, the artist. So obviously you are an entrepreneur. How does your artistry, how does being an independent artist fit into that? It sounds like you're spread thin, and I could be wrong, but like how are you able to balance that? And where do you see your career going? Is it fully into being an independent artist, or are you hoping to continue growing your business and have that sustain you?
Yeah, so the goal has always been to take my music as far as I possibly can, because I feel like my heart, my soul, and my passion is in making music for myself, because I feel like that's the only true way that I'm able to express myself to like the fullest degree. And there's just something about making and releasing and performing music that for me personally, there's just nothing above it. So that's always been the goal. But I understand that I'm not there yet, and I am at a place in my life where I'm able to, comfortably be able to make music and, make money at the same time. So that's cool. But I do want to grow my business, and my business is currently like expanding, which is really, it's turning into what I had always planned for it to be. So Diamond Studios as of right now is, recording studio. I have people that come in. I have clients that I work remotely with from all around the world. I engineer, mix and master and produce for them. And now I'm starting to kind of shift and add, content creation and brand strategy to help other companies and other brands create content that may help them and create a brand that they want to show to people, because I feel like I've been doing this enough to the point that I am able to offer some unique perspective to people who may have a great product and may have something that the world definitely needs to see or hear, but they just don't know how to package it. They don't know how to put it in front of people the right way. So as of right now, my business is what's maintaining my lifestyle and is able to pay all the bills and allow me to live pretty comfortably. But also the music is what reality is meant to be. It's always going to be that. At the end of the day, it comes down to the music.
I would love to hear more of your Spanish heritage, your Mexican heritage in your music, man. I think that that's something that I didn't come to terms with until later on in life. And like you mentioned, you didn't really appreciate that side of your culture, maybe your music tastes, until later on in life. And I think that's what makes us unique, especially as Latinos, Hispanics. Like when you start mixing in those kind of things that make you, man, people just start like, you'd be surprised how people resonate with that. Young Mexican American Latino from Chicago who loves hip hop, who is an entrepreneur. Like, people need to hear that story, man. So I hope you take something from this interview. If you take that would be great. And that would be something that I'd love to hear more from you, man. So
real quick, if I can, I know that at some point, when I was a little bit younger, I was kind of heavy into like the Latin trap and like singing and rapping in English and Spanish. And to your point where you said that like when you try to go commercial with it, that's when you felt the worst. Mixing the Latin music and my music, it felt good at first, but then I felt like I was boxed in, and I did not want to box myself in so early in my career and not just be another Latino trap rapper or whatever. So now I'm a little bit more scarce with when I choose to rap in English and in Spanish to make it just a little bit more me and not so much what do people want to hear, because I say what I feel. And at that point, I felt like I was making music that people were expecting from me. And I like to be a little bit more out of the box now, but that's something that will never leave who I am. And, my art will always be influenced and have bits and pieces of my heritage.
I agree with you. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you love, because that's going to propel you higher than it would if you were like trying to do some sort of like commercial strategy or whatever. So in reality, we're at time, brother. Any last, words that you wanted to impart on the audiences? Anything that you want to either promote, showcase? The floor is yours.
On the other side of fear is opportunity. If you take the leap, you will swim, but you have to take the leap first. And the moment that you stop trying is the moment that all the opportunities fly out the window. So as long as you keep trying, the opportunities will always be there, so long as you are willing to do whatever it takes to get them. So just keep going.
All right, I hope you enjoyed this episode. This episode was brought to you by DistroKid. It was edited in part by Martinez Production Group and produced by my media company, NTS Media LLC. I'm your host, Nico Santana. Feel free to subscribe to this YouTube channel for more episodes. And if you enjoyed this episode, I'm sure you will enjoy listening to this one as well.